Audioversity, the voice of Reichman University.
Special interviews, highlights, and live broadcasts from ICT's annual international conference.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Audioversity, the voice of Reichman University. I'm your host, Noa Ollestad, and we're here at the ICT's 21st Annual International Conference, the World Summit on Counter-Terrorism. I have the pleasure of hosting a roundtable with my distinguished guests, Dr. Daphné Richemond-Barak from the ICT and the Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy, Professor Laurie Blank from Emory Law School, and Professor Eric Jensen at Brigham Young University Law School. Thank you so much for joining me today. How have you been enjoying the conference so far?
It's been a fantastic conference.
It's been wonderful.
Yes. All right. So let's jump right into things. What is the End of War project? How did you establish this project?
So we started the End of War project 3 years ago, pre-COVID.
Okay.
So we've had some ups and downs across changing in obviously how we can get together with people. But the project is designed to look at legal, policy, ethical, strategic, operational questions across a space as war is coming to an end, including trying to figure out how and when it comes to an end, how to protect people during that sort of chaotic, uncertain time as we're thinking about war ending, its ending, and after it ends. And so we've brought together, really put together a multidisciplinary project, always trying to bring many perspectives into the mix. And we have looked at a number of different issues. This year, in particular, what we're focusing on is the role that technology, particularly new and emerging technologies, can play across this end of conflict space. How can it help protect people? How can it be used to facilitate the end of conflict? And so that's what brings us here today.
Amazing. And what kind of brought about this idea to begin with, to start it in the first place?
So it's actually years of working together and wanting to make a contribution that is both valuable in the policy world and in the scholarly world. And we're really at the crossroads between these two worlds. Also, thanks to the cooperation that we have with our, at the institutional level. Like if you think about the Institute for Counter-Terrorism, the ICT, and Emory Law School. So these are, different countries, different types of institutions. So we really try to keep to this diversity, and we wanted a theme that would cover what we saw as key questions of our time. And so far, we've talked about war termination and how war comes to an end. Is there a role, if we link it to technology, can technology play a role in making the decision of when war should end, or assisting decision-making in that critical time? So we value this relationship at the institutional level and at the personal level, and we're hoping it actually makes a contribution.
Wow. Technology thus far has been, very much advanced for the purpose of war and how to escalate war and to dominate. So I think it's very fascinating taking the perspective on conflict resolution and terminating the war. Is there any technology that currently exists that is in this realm of conflict resolution and bringing about more the end of war that currently exists?
There's a lot out there. One of the questions is matching the understanding of the situation on the ground and the tools that either are available, could be available, or need to be available, right? If we kind of think about different things. And so one of the interesting aspects of this has been simply trying to understand what is happening both for warring parties and for civilians, people caught up in the sort of hazards of war during this time frame. What are the gaps? What are the challenges? What are the needs to somehow improve? And again, that's a loose term, because it depends on the question you're asking, but to somehow make it better. So if we're thinking about warring parties, is there a way to minimize uncertainty?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of reasons why wars persist there's many, many reasons. One is miscalculation, misperception, uncertainty about what the other side is doing. And so in obviously always trying to make your own side stronger, if you don't understand what the other side is doing or you don't trust it, you're going to take certain action. If there's a way to alleviate that situation even a little bit, that seems like it would be a positive step, just as one example. We all know sort of instinctively that at the end and after a conflict, communities, populations, civilians are extraordinarily vulnerable. But trying to really grasp the full nature of that and then think about what tools could help to enable more efficient, quicker, perhaps even less costly means of addressing those needs and vulnerabilities. Those things would all help to somehow take away some of the horrors of war. Obviously, if we could have an end of war project that figured out how to end war permanently, that'd be a great project, right? But that one, the international community's been working on for centuries, and there's a lot more to do in that regard. So we're kind of coming in at a smaller level.
So, but I think, like, going back to your question in a way, asking if there are technology that could help, and then kind of elaborating on this for a second, potentially, yes, a lot of technology could help, and maybe we'll give even more examples in this conversation. The reason why we chose this theme and the reason why we think it's important and the reason we think it is actually groundbreaking is that the use of technology in war has not been directed at alleviating the suffering of human beings from atrocities. And we believe that technology could be channeled to advance humanitarian values, human values essentially, as conflicts come to an end. What has technology been used so far? Well, mostly either to make war more effective or in targeting, to some extent, there's been an attempt at creating weapons that are more precise, that would minimize collateral damage. But we are really we're taking a different perspective, and we're really looking at the specific humanitarian aspect of this. And one thing that we've noticed, why we thought this was actually potentially interesting to look at, is that if you look at situations of disasters, in the wake of a major earthquake or a flood, human beings also suffer, right? They are also displaced. They might leave their town. They might be wounded. They might not have food. They might be separated from loved ones. So at the end of war, you could find some similarities with this kind of situations. And yet, what is going on when we talk about disasters? For example, in Nepal, there was definitely satellite imagery that was used in order to identify which areas had been most affected, or again, data that was aggregated in order to find out where the people were located, how to get to them, what roads had been destroyed. And so what we came forward with was an idea to say, wait, if this is going on and being done on a regular basis in a different kind of setting, which is, it comes with it's not exactly the same thing, but it resembles the end of war, then we should channel technology to that end as well at the end of war, because we believe it will make a significant impact on civilian population.
Wow, amazing. So with that being said, how do you all predict that technology can successfully mitigate conflict in the future?
Well, mitigating conflict would be great if we could do it with technology or anything else. I think that one of the things that Professor Blank mentioned that's really important is this common operating picture. If both sides of a conflict have a shared common operating picture where they both have the facts on the ground, they both understand the facts the same way, that's going to facilitate a resolution, because they'll both know where they're going and where the potential forward movement of the conflict is. It's when there's lots of misunderstanding and miscommunication, when both sides think they're still winning, or both sides think, they have advantages that they might not have. And modern technology will help facilitate all of that, whether it's satellite imagery, whether it's drones, whether it's sensors that are placed on the battlefield, whether it's the use of gathering data from social media networks. All of those things provide a much more clear common picture, so that warring factions may decide, well, now is the time to end this conflict. It also would provide alternative ways to end conflicts, right? If you can use analytical and predictive algorithmic tools facilitated by artificial intelligence, that might be able to help warring sides understand where they can go forward, how they can move forward with respect to peace. There's also ways to build confidence building measures. I mean, that's often a key point to having peace is how can I build confidence with my enemy so that I know the peace will be maintained, so that I know that the things I desire out of this peace will be fulfilled. And using technology to build confidence through sensors, through all of these same kinds of technologies would be a great way to help facilitate the end of war.
So I would just like to clarify one thing. From my understanding, in war, both sides don't necessarily want the other to know what they have and what their advantages are. And so how would that play into it when you're saying it would clear up the facts for both sides when either side don't necessarily want the other to know what's going on? How would that work in a realistic situation?
So one useful example is thinking about a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, the beginning of the end is when two sides, usually with mediation, will agree to a ceasefire. Maybe it's only for a few hours for humanitarian purposes. Maybe it's for a few days. Maybe it's going to last for longer. We often then will see violations of that ceasefire.
Okay.
Sometimes those violations are deliberate, intentional from the command leadership down. You know what? We're not going to play this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they are accidental, literally accidental, or they're accidental in the sense that it's a very junior soldier who either misunderstands, doesn't know about this ceasefire, miscalculates, misperceives what he or she sees coming from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden that unintentional action basically undoes the ceasefire and puts the two parties back in a situation of hostilities. To the extent that there's a way, and the tech, I mean, these are. It's not like you have to go develop this technology. If there were a focused use of any number of technological tools to share a common picture, to share information, to verify information. So, for example, whether it's blockchain or other tools where you can have a verifiable secure communications platform, so that everybody on both sides, meaning everybody in the military chain of command, all the way down to the squad level, the platoon level, knew ceasefire now.
Mm-hmm.
It's now in operation, and this is the position of every unit, of every party, and we're all staying here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you all know. That would be a much less uncertain picture.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Didn't say necessarily a more certain picture, but a less uncertain picture than we have now. And potentially, maybe it doesn't stop all violations of ceasefires, but each little thing. It's one of the things about working in this area of war and international law is you can't only look for the big win.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be not just content, but you have to be like pretty excited about each incremental step, because those steps can be very hard to achieve. So that's one example. But looking at what you were saying about, well, we don't always want to share a lot of information. Another area where technology these kinds of verifiable communication tools could be very useful is for humanitarian organizations that are on the ground, that are in grave danger of being caught in the middle of hostilities, and they might want to share their location with one side or the other side in the conflict, but clearly not let, say, one who is not friendly to their activities know. So rather than, putting up a smoke signal that everybody can see where they are, if there's a way that they can, through an encrypted channel, say to one side, hey, we're on Main Street at the corner of, whatever, don't make sure you take that into account when you engage in your military operations, but they don't reveal that location to the other side. That would enable them to enhance their security and therefore their operations. So it's just another example.
I see. So are there some technological advancements that are being researched and developed now that are in the works that we could potentially see being used in the next relative future?
So I think, first of all the things that we are suggesting as part of our recommendations, and we'll soon publish a white paper that really lays out all of the products and all the insights that we've gained from our multi-stakeholder process that involved militaries and experts and lawyers and philosophers even. So we really had a broad conversation here, and cyber experts and technological experts, of course. So all of the things that we are recommending in our white paper can be implemented. I mean, there's nothing there that is like, go to the moon and back. So we're being very realistic, but we are making clear, also we're identifying some key opportunities where we think the implementation of certain technologies would be most useful. So everything is available, like Professor Blank was saying. I don't think that's in question at all. And in the future, some of the things that are currently in the works, and in the spirit of what we just discussed, is really to have this kind of a safe communication platform for all actors that are involved at this really, again, uncertain, very volatile time of conflict at the end of war, where the identity of the actors could be verified and their conversation also being encrypted. So this kind of safe platform where they could communicate while verifying not only the identity of who's talking, but also the information that they're sharing, that's currently in the works. And there's prototypes that are being developed. And this could be very helpful, particularly if we keep in mind that one of the main, I want to say, plagues of modern conflict is uncertainty from the point of view of disinformation, right? You never know if whoever is sharing the information, where they got it from, how do you validate it? You don't always have time to conduct a forensics analysis when you're, in the fog of war and in the heat of the conflict, or maybe a disengagement or whatnot. So, if we keep in mind that this is really a major problem today, this disinformation, not knowing who talks to you, not being able to verify the information that are sharing, these kind of platforms that are being developed now, I think would really, they are attempting to solve one of the major challenges that is encountered on the ground. And again, this is constantly what we're trying to do, right? To think about what challenges exist on the ground and what technology would be best fit to match this need and provide a solution. Now, is this solution 100%? Never. First of all, technology always comes with some concerns and risks and so on. And does it solve the problem for 100% as well? Probably not. But like we say, any attempt at mitigating is always a step forward.
Amazing. And so, from what I'm understanding, it sounds like a great mixture of using current technology and just applying it, in this case of using it for more humanitarian purposes, but also with developing new technologies for the future.
Right. And one of our recommendations, in fact, is to not only get a broad range of actors to think about how they can use existing tools to better address some of the needs that we highlighted, but also to invest, to develop, this is not necessarily something that we can predict, but we want them to allocate resources to the use of technology for humanitarian purposes in war.
So using Israel and the IDF as a case study, where do you see and where do you believe Israel can implement these technologies in inevitable future wars, either with Hamas in the Gaza Strip or even Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, hopefully some of these technologies will help make those wars not inevitable. Hopefully instead the use of technology might be able to build confidence, use confidence-building measures and mitigation to maybe avoid some of that. But certainly all of these same things that we've talked about, the use of information gathering and developing a common operating picture, the use of sensors to track movements of people and goods and things, the use of technology in things like the Iron Dome and things like that have provided safety for people. All of those technologies continue to be useful and will continue as they develop to be even more useful. The use of nanotechnology to provide energy sources for longer periods of time in smaller containers with more power. The use of artificial intelligence to do predictive analysis, algorithmic analysis of where potential risks are and how those risks might be able to be avoided. All of those future technologies and developing technologies, I think, could be applied to the same kind of conflicts you're talking about.
Another area where technology can play a role, thinking after a conflict and at the end with an eye to diminishing the likelihood that the conflict breaks out again, is looking at what's called DDR, right? Disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. And there's a lot of interesting ideas about how technological tools, both screening and sort of AI and algorithms, can help not just track and ensure the disarmament and demobilization of those who were engaged in the fighting, but try to build systems to better design and predict where to reintegrate former fighters back into society, and particularly in communities where those opportunities need to be developed, right? Because there's either a large refugee population, there's large populations that don't have sufficient labor opportunities, trying to think, a bit in a bit smarter way about how to do that beyond, okay, let's take all the weapons away. And let's disband this militia group or this paramilitary group. What comes after that, right? Because communities with a lot of young people who don't have opportunities, wherever that is, right, around the world, those tend to be the ones where we'll see the seeds for conflict to break out again, right? So it's thinking not just about how to bring conflict to the end, but how do we envision and how do we make that ending and immediate post-conflict phase be durable, right? Because we don't just want peace, we want a sustainable peace.
Well said. So then what are the next steps for the project, and for where does the future, what does the future hold?
Well, for this immediate theme of technologies, we are going to be presenting our findings tomorrow, and then we'll be putting out a white paper with some recommendations. We hope to, get some research sort of provoked by our conversations, some policy conversations provoked by all this. So we're hoping for a lot more conversation on this topic, and we'll also be moving on to other issues in this sort of big end of war space where there's lots to think about going forward in trying to sort of take what is a time of great uncertainty, vulnerability, and again, trying to look for even the smallest ways to take some of that away.
Look, without being, if you want to get somewhere, you have to be ambitious. So I would say that the next step is to actually trigger a policy shift. We want to see more resources, more thinking allocated to this idea that technology needs to be also channeled towards humanitarian needs, promoting democratic and humanitarian values. We want to see that. We want to disseminate this white paper and present it in Washington, in Tel Aviv. We want to get the IDF's thoughts on it. We want to get the military academy in the United States to think about it. That's our next step, and we want to continue working with our sponsors who have been critical and enable us to actually get to this point. And here I'm referring to the Lieber Institute for Law and Land Warfare at West Point, the Program on Democratic Resilience and Development at the Lauder School, and the American Red Cross. They've all been really instrumental in getting us to this point, and now we want to take these thoughts out to a broader audience, to the public, and hopefully this is really like the idea is to trigger some policy changes.
So for people who would like to read more about your research, your findings, and your recommendations, where can they find it?
So they can, first of all, they can contact us, any of us, Professor Eric Jensen or Professor Laurie Blank. They can get in touch with the ICT, who knows where to find us. And again, we're going to put it out there, so soon it will be available on Twitter and other platforms, LinkedIn. Just look also for End of War Project. I think you can find us that way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I learned a lot, and I think it's a very fascinating project and a very optimistic project. So good luck, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.